This is Bucket Talk, a monthly podcast taking you across America to meet the most badass tradespeople, industry leaders, and personalities. If you're looking to level up in the trades, you're in the right place. All right, so we're here with Jimmy DiResta on this episode of Bucket Talk. We're in East Durham, New York.
East Durham, New York, home of the Maker Camp.
Yeah. So we're up here for Maker Camp. That's one event that we sponsor. It's near and dear to my heart because the Maker community has supported us since day one, and we're doing our best to support them. But yeah, it's an eclectic group of people with a whole bunch of different skill sets that come together for a weekend, and it's fun. It's informative. You get your hands dirty. It's cool.
Yeah, it's a great weekend, and even everyone thinks I know how to do everything. I still try new stuff.
Yeah. Yep. So Jimmy, obviously, I don't know, are you the ringleader per se?
Well, it's funny. People think I started Maker Camp, but you guys know Austin.
Yep.
Austin is basically the ringleader of Maker Camp.
Okay.
He's the ringmaster. I guess you might say I'm like I don't know what the hell would be. I'm like the muse, basically. This was Austin's idea. Me and Austin made friends when I first moved to East Durham full time. I've owned my house up here for 21 years, but it was only about 6 or 7 years ago I moved up here full time. So this is the seventh Maker Camp. I met Austin the year before the first one, so I met Austin 8 years ago.
Okay.
And he said, "Hey, I got this idea, and now that I know you live in town," because he was already a fan of mine. Mm-hmm. We just bumped into each other in town. He goes, "What are you doing here in East Durham?" I go, "I live here." He goes, "I knew you lived upstate. I didn't know you lived here." I go, "Yeah, I live up the road." So Blackthorn and my house are on the same road, a few miles apart. And Austin came to me, he's like, "Hey, I want to do this thing. I want to do like a Woodstock gathering of makers." And I don't even think we had Maker Camp yet, the name. And sat down with his family and me, and his father's like, "What do you get out of this?" I go, "Honestly, I don't want anything.
Yeah.
I just want to see the community grow. And I make enough money from my sponsors. I don't need to make, $5 or $7 or $8, $10,000 off of their the entry fee." So I said, all I want to do is just help Austin get this thing off the ground.
Right.
And I made all the introductions in the beginning, but now Austin is totally on his own. Mm-hmm. He's running the show on his own. And if he does need my advice or needs me to help massage a deal or an introduction, that's what I'm there for.
Awesome.
So if anything, he knows that I'm working with Weaver and I made that introduction. He knows I'm working with Aeon Laser. I made that introduction. But because Austin is who he is now at year 7, he makes a lot of relationships completely on his own, which is great.
Totally. So if you're ever interested, it's in October every year. It's up at the Blackthorn Resort.
It's the Columbus Day weekend every year.
Yeah.
And we're in year 7 at the moment.
Yep. Awesome. So you're pretty famous in your craft, which is multiple crafts, but how'd you get your start? Like you said earlier, you're from the city, East Side, right?
Well, the Lower East Side is where I lived. I grew up in Long Island. Okay. I grew up in a small town called Woodmere, Long Island, 5 towns. The only other famous person, not that I'm so famous, but the only famous person that I know of from Woodmere that I could think of is Perry Farrell from Pono for Pyros.
Okay.
And Jane's Addiction.
Yeah. He
grew up there as a young man, and then he moved to California. So he's like, his hometown is Woodmere, which is crazy. I didn't know that till I heard him on the WTF podcast. But I grew up in Woodmere, went to art school in the city, into New York City School of Visual Arts, and I ended up staying in the city after that. I couldn't afford to live and pay for school at the same time I paid for school myself, so I was living in my mother's house, commuting to the city, and then after I got out of school, I got an apartment in the Lower East Side in 92 with my brother. Then we got a storefront shop in the Lower East Side. So we had the apartment above, the storefront below, and that was my toy business prototyping. I was designing and developing and inventing toys in the Lower East Side with my brother. He was on the marketing side. I was obviously on the invention development side, prototyping, model making. And we did a lot of model making for other inventors and toy companies. We developed relationships with a lot of the smaller toy companies. Mm-hmm. And we got into this situation where we would do product development and product managing for about 5 different companies, and each one of them would pay us like a draw or a retainer.
Yep.
And so we were collecting money from about 5 or 6 or 7, depending more or less sometimes. And so we were just hired hitmen for the toy business, whatever anybody needed, if they wanted us to go to Hong Kong to see through a project. And we developed a reputation of doing things fast and efficient and always on the go.
Yep.
We were 2 single guys willing to go to Hong Kong. It's hard to get someone to go to Hong Kong for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
If you have a family. So we would always do whatever anybody needed. We developed a good client list, and that's really was the 90s for me.
Yeah, and you're known for gurgling guts?
I did a product called Gurgling Guts in the 90s. Yeah, it was just a squishy ball. We developed that in our shop in the Lower East Side. Stupid product that I had a Shelley Goldstein was my toy agent. Mm-hmm. He was a real character. So Shelley occasionally would come to my shop and say, "What do you have? What do you have that has no life anymore?" Like we'd take products and show it to everybody, and then we just throw it in a box. Yeah. Nobody ever passed on that. Gurgling Guts was one of them. It was a rubber ball inside of a condom. And at the time, I didn't have the breakthrough invention. This is an interesting story. So it was just a hard rubber ball in a condom with blood in between. So the rubber ball looked like a brain. So it looked like the brain with that mucus on it.
Yeah.
And you squeeze it and the blood would flow through the convolutions of the brain sculpt. And so we sold that. And Shelley took that idea, which I had shown everywhere. This small little company's like, we love this idea. It's gross. We like gross is in now. As soon as when all the gross shit, you're probably young enough to remember.
Yeah.
All this gross shit was a big deal in the late 90s. And so we developed this thing called the Gurgling Guts, but in the design development of manufacturing it, how were we able to make this skin? Because at the time I just tied a knot in a condom. But you can't tie a knot in a finished product.
Right.
So they came up with this injection molded silicone cup shaped like a ball. You put the sculpted object in there and then you glue the cap. But there was all the blood was interfering with the glue joint. And so they left it up to me to R&D and figure it out. And I was like, okay, what if the ball was hollow? Because we were still stuck on the hard rubber ball because you could bounce it. I was like, what if the ball was hollow? We fill the ball with the goo in a separate operation in the factory. So now the ball, you just have to face it up like a glass full of water, put it inside the rubber skin, glue the skin, let the skin dry for 24 hours, and then squeeze the goo out. So now you have a safe, clean manufacturing process, and it's just prepped, and when everything's glued and dried, then you... And then when I made that first prototype, I did it, and it went... I'm like, holy shit. So this the product is the noise. The product had no noise. It was just the visual gross feeling. And then when we did that, and then we changed the name to Gurgling Guts. We just called it Gross Guts is what we were calling it. And then when we got the sound, you go... it was doing that, and then that basically became Gurgling Guts. And
so how successful was it?
We made millions of dollars, but we split it 4 ways. My brother, we had Harleys and Corvettes. We were idiots. We didn't save anything. We were total idiots. But we split it 4 ways. I mean, it grossed millions of dollars. As far as royalties are concerned, we probably made over $1 million in royalties. But we split it 4 ways evenly. It was me and my brother and my buddy Pat. My buddy Perry was on that, and Perry designed all the brand look. I came up with the invention. My brother was sort of the sales rep on it, and Shelley got a piece of it. So because there was 4 of us in the toy business, is sort of this tradition of what it's like when you get a good idea, and then you got to cut a piece out for this guy and cut a piece out. And then we always had this thing. Me and my brother did this. If there was 2 people on an invention, if I invented it, I own 100% of it. If you come in and you go, you should make it green, and then I'm like, you know what, he's right, he really should. So all right, let's split it 50-50.
Right.
Because you came up with the thing that now makes it a real thing.
Right.
And if somebody else comes in and goes, you should do a doohickey here, and I'm like, all right. So me and my brother would be like, all right, let's just split it. Now it's 33.3 each.
It's honorable.
It's honorable, and it makes life easy. No one's fighting.
If you look back on it, right, without Shelley and that discarded box of toys, right, it would have never become.
Exactly, and that's why we say, even though it might seem minuscule, everybody plays what we believe is an equal part.
Right.
And that we still believe that. I see these guys come into TV, they're like, me and my best friend have this idea. I own 53. I'm like, he's your best friend now? You're never going to talk to him in about 2 years. I was like, if you keep it totally even. I said, and by the way, don't ever try and pitch a show with your best friend. Because the minute you sit down and somebody wants the show, they'll be like, who's this guy? This is a guy, we went to high school together. We're best friends. They're like, all right. And then you see the executives trying to immediately be like, how can we get rid of this guy?
Yeah.
How can we just cut him out of it? He's just dead weight. No, but he's my best friend. I've seen so many relationships get ruined in the TV and the toy business. And that's why me and my brother would always so anyway, getting back to, we made over $1 million in royalties. So if each one of us made $300,000 a piece or more, we blew it.
After taxes,
Yeah, exactly. And then, at the time I was in the Lower East Side, I had a workshop like this with a garage door and a second floor. So we were paying rent on a building in the Lower East Side. We had the whole building and my apartment, my brother's apartment. So we were living large, we were balling, but stupid.
Yeah. So then, honestly, just going back to how you got into the toy business, obviously you went from School of Artistry to...
So I graduated School of Visual Arts, and I was going to be a prototype. I was going to be a model maker, like a 3D illustrator, because I got into... My last couple of years at school, I got in with a prop maker, and he would teach us concept and execution, and I was already good. I was just because of my dad, and I was already good at making things.
Yeah.
So I was going through this course with my friend Kevin, who was my mentor at the time, and I knew how to do everything. So I was kind of his teacher's pet. So I basically became his teaching assistant. But still, I learned a lot from Kevin. He was in the trades of show business, developing things for commercials, and we need a big fake jet airliner, and he would figure out how to make visually a little model and put it in camera close, feels big, this type of stuff. So I was learning all those techniques and a little bit of that business from Kevin. But the last year I graduated, just before I graduated, I took a small class called Toys and Games with a guy named Mark Ducati. And Mark Mark became my new mentor, and it was funny because Kevin got a little jealous. He's like, "You sure you want to do this toy business thing?" But Mark, I credit both of those guys with the beginning of my career. I love both of those guys. But Mark was in the toy business, and he says, "You have a really good mind for coming up with crazy ideas."
Right.
He said, "You should really you should foster that." So when I graduated, Mark kept giving me work. He's like, "I got this idea with glasses. I wanted like glasses to bump up and down on your nose. I'll just give you free reign. You just come up with 5 versions of that."
Yeah.
And I would do that for Mark all the time. And Mark would introduce me, and I met all the inventors through Mark. And Mark had a very successful line of products. He was a magician, so that he came up with this product line for, I think it was Hasbro, called Magic Works.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of a magic kit that has 20, 30, like there was always the numbers. It's like, I want a magic kit that has 25 working magic tricks. I want a magic kit that has 30,
Yeah.
so they would compete with each other, these companies. Mark said, "Why don't we make one really good magic trick that works and impresses the shit out of everybody?
Yeah.
And you sell one trick for $25. And everyone thought he was crazy, but he developed like 50 tricks, and each one was $25. And so you'd go to a side cap in the store, and then there would be all these. So like basically, kids would collect them like cards,
Yeah.
or like Beanie Babies. So you collect them
Probably
the tricks.
made
Like,
more money than
yeah,
just
and then
a 25 piece set.
each trick, that's why it was called Magic Works.
Yeah.
Each trick really worked. It wasn't just like some random thing you got to read a pamphlet to learn how to do. Like you could open each trick, and there were real working illusions based on all real magic illusions that all the real guys do on stage, and just mini versions of them. And it was very successful for him.
That's cool.
Yeah. So anyway, Mark was one of my teachers in the toy business, in school and out of school, and he was a big part of my life. And then I introduced him to my brother, and they got along because they had this crazy sick sense of humor.
So that was your kind of intro into
The toy business.
toy business, woodworking, working with your hands type deal.
Yeah. Well, I'd always been working with my hands with my dad, doing carpentry and then cabinet work and a little bit like that old sign hanging on the wall that says "Let It Be." My dad made that in the '70s with a router, So my dad was always making stuff.
Oh, okay. So you really got that from your father.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. And then when I was in the toy business, I had a different mindset because I had come from construction, and I had already been solving all kinds of problems. I had several inventions that I never really patented, but I had all these ideas. So in the toy business, it was just constantly just exercising, coming up with crazy shit.
So did toy making kind of dry up? What was the shift there?
That's interesting because the toy business, and my other brother is an actor, a comedian in TV. And right around 2001, it was like around 9/11, the toy business started becoming very heavily license driven. So inventions weren't as important as a licensed product.
Okay.
So, for instance, Britney Spears kind of broke that open. Our friend got the Britney Spears license, and he made millions and millions of dollars. And he didn't need an invention. All he needed was somebody else. He basically, like, you parasite, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah.
I would do it if I could. You parasite off of somebody's fame and fortune, and you make their doll, or you make their camp set, if it's if it's Bear Grylls or whatever it is. So licensing really took hold, and it's like everything now. BRUNT, where you license to. I mean, you guys, I know you're running a little bit more of a bigger show, but eventually you might license to this type of apparel that you don't want to make, or
Totally.
you might license the brand to this type of shoes that you don't want to make.
Yeah.
But it's still your brand.
Yep.
So that's licensing, and in the toy business, licensing basically became. You remember in the aughts when all of a sudden, like, all these old brands from when we were little, like Mr. Potato Head and fucking Etch-a-Sketch and Operation, they all started showing up everywhere.
Yeah.
Because Parker Brothers and Hasbro and all these companies started realizing they're sitting on this already. They don't need to pay new inventors. They don't need to. You got all these old brands that you associate with, like a little mini version. You associate with this and this, a little that. But they would. So all these old school brands, and then celebrities. Pixar really blew that up too.
Right.
With all the new Pixar movies, where entertainment and toys really started to combine.
Yeah.
And that's really where the inventor really wasn't needed.
It was kind of funny. I grew up in East Long Meadow, Massachusetts, and that was the home of Milton Bradley.
Yeah, that's right.
Before
Yeah,
it was bought out by Hasbro. So
Yeah.
it was kind of funny. A lot of people in the area. That, and actually it was American Saw, but it's now Lennox. Saw blades,
Oh, yeah.
both in the same area, and it was either a lot of people's parents either worked for the saw
Yeah.
blade company or the toy company.
Oh
so it
yeah,
was
that's
pretty cool.
funny. Two things that are kind of
And
familiar.
then Lego was down the street for a while, but yeah, it's kind of interesting that there is a niche for toys in this area.
So then with computers and this, that, and the other thing. Oh, so I brought up my other brother. I started experimenting with videography and video editing, and
Yep.
I started playing with Final Cut Pro. All the while from '92 until 2018, I taught at the School of Visual Arts. I went back to teach my students.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I was teaching 20-year-olds for about 24, 25 years. So all that while, my students were keeping me young in the way of like, hey, you want some software? I'm like, yeah. So my students would give me hack software. So that's how I really learned how to use Photoshop, Illustrator, and editing software. I learned from my students.
Yeah.
So like they were on the cutting edge.
360
I was
learning.
already like past that.
Yeah.
You know, so they were on the cutting edge of all this new technology that was coming up in the early 90s, and my students introduced me to all that.
That's really cool. And so the shift from toy making to teaching,
Videography.
Yeah. And now what's all this? Like,
So I went from making toys in the Lower East Side to when the toy business started. Then I got a little. There was straggler royalties coming in here and there, but not enough to survive. So what I started doing with other inventors, I'm like, if you want to take a chance, they'd come to me and they go, I have this great idea for a microphone. It's this, that, and the other thing. And in my mind, they're like, I'll give you 3 points on the idea. I go, how about you just pay me $5,000 a month to develop your idea? So I started doing that. I'd be like, I'd take a retainer from inventor. I'm like, I will build 5 prototypes this month and help you develop package and figure out all the engineering issues. You give me $5,000. And I'd take $5,000 from like 4 or 5 different inventors a month. So that was really my number. I'd be like, I'll develop this product for you, $5,000. If at the end of the month we need to do more, you give me another $5,000. I did it monthly, a monthly retainer. And that's kind of how I was making my living. And I would invent my own ideas sometimes, but that's when I also really started doing interior design work. I got with a couple of neighborhood interior designers, and they would help me. They'd introduce me to restaurants, and then I'd start working for the restaurant. Hey, we need 5 tables for an event. I'd make the tables. Hey, we need a big, long dining table, 13-foot long table. And I'd make the table look like it's old and like it's been there forever. You know, like a big, like...
distressed look.
Yeah. So I was doing a lot of that in the city, and it was all working within like a 5-mile radius of my shop.
Yeah.
Because it's in Manhattan, so there's so much to give and so many people to work for. And I was doing that. And at the same time, I was dabbling a little bit in the toy business, but I got disillusioned with it. My brother got married, moved to Jersey, so we didn't share a shop together anymore. He was developing his own career. He started working for a product development company in Pittsburgh, and then I was on my own. And so that's when I started doing videography. And then me and my brother John started pitching show ideas. This is all before YouTube. And me and my brother John sold a few TV show ideas based on the films that we would make in the Lower East Side.
And you guys were on like HGTV, DIY.
My brother had already done a couple shows, done a couple of big movies, but he came up with this idea of finding garbage and making it into stuff.
Was that Hammered?
That was a show called Trash to Cash.
Okay.
That was our first show together. And so I went out to LA and I filmed him. And my whole motivation on this show, I've told this story 100 times, but it's so interesting. When we did Trash to Cash, I went out and filmed him pick the garbage, make it into a table, and that was the arc. Like we made, and the whole time he's being funny, silly. He's a very funny, naturally funny comedian, making you laugh and saying all those crazy references. And he said, "This wood is old and sexy like Madonna," you know, like stupid shit like that. And the show had a lot of laughs in it. I edited up a 30-minute clip of the movie, and my brother's agent, to his surprise, it was good and funny. He's like, "This is actually fucking funny."
Yeah.
So my brother's agent is in New York. He came to me, sat with me at my computer, and we cut a 22-minute pitch tape down to 5 minutes based on his experience in the toy business, in the TV business.
Yeah.
So Barry Katz is his name. You could look him up. He's still a big deal. So Barry and I sat at the computer and like 2000 and like the end of 2000 and like maybe the beginning of 2002, because it was still 9/11 was still fresh in the air. And we edited this tape down to 7 or 8 minutes. And then on that 7 or 8 minutes, Barry sold it to a Fox affiliate, a Fox TV show, FX Network.
Yeah.
And so we had our first meeting with FX to pitch the concept and talk about, you know, what the show could be. And in that meeting, I came, and me and my brother are sitting there, and this guy, David's like, he goes, "So let me get this right. You make things that you find in the garbage." And the guy, my brother says yes. And the guy says to me, he goes, "What do you do?" This is one of those moments where it's like, we
need to get rid of him.
Yeah, get rid of him. He's like, "So what do you do?" I go, "Well, I shot and edited that clip you saw." I said, "I would be behind the scenes. And I had a whole book of ideas. I was like, all hand drawn with marker and stuff. I was like, if you look through this book of ideas, we could make like a canoe out of bottles and, you know, water bottles. It was all about recycling and making shit." And he goes, "Is this what you do for a living?" I go, "What kind of?" I go, "I kind of do this. I make toys. I do all kinds of shit." And he goes, sits there, thinks for a minute. He goes, "Well, why don't we do a brother thing? Why don't you be the guy on camera that makes shit, and you be the host, and you be funny, because you're better at it. And if you really make all that shit," he goes, "maybe we'll just do a pilot, and you make the shit, and you make it funny."
Okay.
He goes, "You okay with that?" And he looks at me and goes, "Would you be okay on camera?" I go, "Yeah." It was never the intention. And so David put that concept together, and so we shot a pilot, and then we did 8 episodes of that show called Trash to Cash. It was very funny. We did it out in LA, and we shot it in the summer of '02. It aired in '03. And then FX Network started putting on shows like The Shield and Nip Tuck. So they basically became like a mini HBO.
Yeah,
And all these
The
like
Shield took off.
Yeah, so on our little block of time, it was me and my brother and Bert Kreischer had a show called Hurt Bert. This is like when Bert really was a college student.
Yeah.
Now he's like a 60-year-old college student, but at the time he really was a college student. So Bert and my brother were friendly, and Bert came to some of the shoots of Trash to Cash because we shot it in the Valley, and he was another client of Barry's. So we shot Trash to Cash in that summer of '02. The show aired, and because of Nip Tuck and all that stuff, the show never got reordered. And then I had made a pitch tape. Me and my brother came up with a pitch tape of a thing called Making It with John and Jimmy.
Okay.
And we came up with this pitch where we'd make stuff. Like people, we pretended that people wrote in and said, "Could you make a go-kart for my son's birthday?" And it was kind of similar to what we ended up doing with the Netflix show. And we made that pitch tape, and it ended up at HGTV through a friend of a friend. And then they called us and said, "Hey, will you help us make this show? We will help you make a show." They hired a production company. They liked that concept of that show, but it got a little bit morphed into Hammered, and that's what became Hammered.
Right.
And so it was kind of like a cooking show. It's like, today we're going to make a dining table. And it's funny and stupid, and I'm giving tips, and my brother's giving banter.
Yeah.
And that was Hammered for HGTV. And then we ended up going on DIY Network, and then my brother ended up doing a different project, and I ended up doing another show called Against the Grain with Jimmy DiResta, and my assistant on camera was this girl, I forget her name, but she was from Trading Spaces. And so she was my on-camera assistant, and that show never did anything. And then I ended up working on a show called Blog Cabin for HGTV, and that's when I met the guys at This Old House. Developed a friendship with them there that lasted, and then they ended up bringing me back to...
Yeah, they're from up in our neck of the woods, Lexington.
Yeah, so that's when I first met Kevin. He was on a Blog Cabin down in Tennessee, and it's been a really wild ride. Like, and I always say to my brothers, and even fans and people that ask me my advice, like, you just never know. Answer every phone call, answer every email. You just never know where it's going to lead. I'll hang out with guys that are like, I don't know that number, I'm not answering it. I'm like, just fucking say hello. If it's somebody you don't know, just hang up on them.
Yeah.
Literally hang up in the middle of the conversation. No, it doesn't fucking matter. But it might be somebody. It might be somebody. It might be the next thing.
Right.
It's like the other example is like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, shit, I need money. Ryan, my friend, comes to me and goes, hey, I got this gig. I'm like, and he lays out the scope of work. I'm like, that's about $50,000 worth of work. He goes, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I go, hit him with the number, and he goes, will you help me build it? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, boom, like from like zero to like we split $50,000 in 7 days.
Oh yeah.
It's like you never know. You never know. As long as you're like primed and ready to ready to go, you got to be ready for these opportunities to say yes on a dime.
So we did the walk and talk earlier, and we were just kind of, I don't know, you got like phases of your life. You got carpenter, you got blacksmithing. You got, like, there's just, it seems like there's nothing you can't do. Even the sewing room. What's your favorite thing to do?
Honestly, I mean, lately these days I like doing leather work.
Yep.
It's like, it's not so taxing on the physical, and leather work is so forgiving. So I always say this to people, so is welding and metal work. And even though it seems so permanent, you can just cut it, weld it again.
Absolutely.
You drill a hole in the wrong spot, fill it with weld, drill it again. So leather work is much more forgiving than people think. So you can get a lot of value out of leather work. If you're trying to make money, you can get a ton of value. Like even the smallest little leather thing somebody makes, when I see a student of mine or a fan or somebody make something out of leather, they get like so enthralled with. I'm like, I made this. It only took me a few minutes. I punched some holes. I did some hand stitching, and I still feel that when I make certain things out of. Like I made this. I talked about this stupid thing.
Yeah.
I made a couple of handmade prototypes, like hand cut prototypes, and then when I zeroed in on the shape and size that I want, this I still consider a prototype. But I zeroed in on this, and I laser cut this one and assembled it, and I'm like, this feels right. It's starting to feel right. Like when it comes in focus, it's still really sexy.
It's kind of like an ode to your father. I mean, I see all the firemen wearing that.
Oh yeah, that's funny.
Radio holder when they're on details.
Exactly, it's funny. I showed it to my friend Mike, who's a fireman. Like, what do you think of it? He goes, it looks like our radio holder.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. So this isn't really an invention. It's just for me, it's an accessory that works for like my workflow.
Right.
And I made one for my girlfriend right away, and she's been using it. And it's funny. Like I said, I never know where my phone is. It's in the other room. It's in the car. I leave it at the register where I just bought something. Like the only if I'm listening to a podcast, which I'm usually listening to a podcast or a YouTube video on my ears, and it starts cracking up, I'm like, oh, oh fuck, I left my phone in the store. Like right where I took my change out of my pocket. I do it all the time.
So leather work is kind of what you like.
Leather work these days has been like the most rewarding. But I also like when I spend time in the blacksmith shop, I'm like, I got to do this more often. I don't do it enough. When I see like Cliff and John at the Maker Camp and like the excellence that those guys can put into a hammer and the quality of work that those guys do, I'm like, I got to do more work. I got to do more blacksmithing. it comes in phases.
Yeah, yeah. And what was your most challenging build?
Probably this building.
Really?
This
not
building,
the canoe, not
this
just
building,
the
and that building. And I'm restoring the house up the road. It's a never-ending fucking bird nest of fucking unsolvable loose ends when you build a building, unless you're like in it and it's your day to day. But if you're like, I hear these guys go, I'm going to buy a piece of land and buy a building and build a building. I'm like, yeah, good fucking luck. You have no idea what you're getting into.
Yeah.
I didn't either, but I'm like, if I'm going to build this building, I have a shop down the block, so that was my shop. But it took me like almost 4 or 5 years to finish this place, like to the point where it's at now, and I still feel like I still haven't put the floor in that I want, but that'll come. I got plenty of floor space at the moment. Like I thought that was going to be my clean sewing room upstairs. That was the idea.
Yeah.
And then I ended up using that horse barn for it instead. But I guess when it comes down to challenging builds, my most recent really challenging build was the Cadillac.
Okay.
I built it right here. We dragged that carcass of a car right here. And all these stains are from this car. We dragged it in right here in January. Bought the car in September. Me and Rob, my guy Rob Rojas, we went to go look at the car. And I was like, $1,500. I go, if it doesn't work out, we'll just sell the nose, break up the parts and sell the parts, or just fucking push it in the woods, whatever.
Right.
And so we dragged it down the block to the racetrack property. I got a big parking lot over there just to get it out of public. And then it sat there, and then the first order of business was to free up the engine. And at every step, I'm like, this may or may not work.
Was it locked up?
The engine was totally locked up.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't know if it was blown. We didn't know if the piston rods or the cam was broken. We knew nothing. Drive shaft could have been broken in half. We had no idea. It says 64,000 miles. It could be 364,000. I have no idea. And there was no drive shaft. There was no there was no linkage to the rear axle. The drive shaft was just dragging. It was like tied up with a rope. So when we got it to the parking lot, I put a big monkey wrench on the drive shaft, put it in gear to see if the engine would turn, and the engine was locked up. We knew it was locked up. And we took the heads off and started soaking it with kerosene. I looked online. Some guy says, take a rosebud and just heat the whole block up. So I did that. I heated the whole block up for like a half hour. And then all the fucking oil was on fire, blowing through all the ports, and it started moving.
Really?
I was like, all right, that's one hurdle down.
Cool.
Got the fucking engine freed up.
Yeah.
Now we got to make sure like it turns completely over and there's not a broken linkage or anything. Started turning completely over. One of the valves was stuck, so it would get to a hump and it would be hard to turn.
Yeah.
But I didn't know where that hump was. And so by order of process of elimination, we took the whole top of the engine off and we found the valve that kept staying up in the air. And I tap it and go down and it was hard to push up. So that was the one valve. I took that out and cleaned that valve off. I never done that. I could have popped the spring and dropped it into the engine casing. That would have been the end of it. It would have been fucked. It's all right there and it falls right into the engine cavity. So I was able to keep that from happening. I got a valve compressor.
Did you use compressed air to push it up?
No, it's all right there. Once you take off, everything's right there because it's a flathead.
Yeah.
So it was all right there. You got the two valves in the piston right here, and the valves are all like in the valley there in the middle of the engine. And so it was easy to get at, but of course it was the valve that was all the way here, just under the cast.
Yeah.
So I had to like get this way, and like everything was just out of view. I was using the Milwaukee scope camera to see exactly where I was. Get those two little things off of
the keeper.
Yeah, you keep the keepers off of the valve stem, and I didn't drop anything in the engine.
Yeah.
It's like amazing.
So the way they do it,
rags jammed everywhere.
The way we do it is take the spark plug out, put compressed air into the cylinder with it at top dead center, so all your valves closed.
Right.
Blow compressed air into the cylinder, and it'll keep the valve up, so you can work on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So. I didn't say. So you just keep it pressurized.
Keep it pressurized.
And all the springs are down.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So that's how we do like valve spring replacement on engine is by putting compressed air right to the.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, that one's another flathead in the donor car, so we might pull that engine out just to have fun with it.
Yeah.
I even contemplated putting it on a stand to see if we could just get it started.
Yep.
And build a steel frame for it, just have it ready to go into something.
Yeah. So we got to go take a look at that car.
Yeah, it's over at the Maker Camp. It's near the Total Boat Tent.
Yeah. And that was the most challenging build.
That was a challenge. So like I said, once we got the engine going, then Rob ripped apart the brake system. Rob did most of the brakes. And then, DTB Fab, you guys know Dave, DTB Fab. Dave came and gave us his expertise on the engine. We got the engine running. It seemed like the engine really wasn't shot, so we were good. And, I started seeming more and more like that 64,000 mile could be original, like no 100 added to it. Because the car drives really well. It's not too sloppy. I mean, it's sloppy for because the cars are made a little sloppy compared to new cars, but it's not. You're not like driving it like this, trying to stay in the middle of the road.
Right.
And then taking the cab was the only thing left of the hull of the boat. The car. It is a boat. The only thing left of the cab itself was just the front cab. Everything from the thing back was cut off.
Yeah.
It was just a naked frame, no gas tank. Fucking cut off pipes hanging out everywhere.
Right.
There's a lot of dead-ended, gas lines and stuff underneath the brake lines. We all just put new ones next to the old ones. And then starting to build the chassis back. the cab, and I built the floor first, and then I started building up and around,
Yeah.
and then I built the roof, and then we got the donor car, and I put the rear fenders on. It was nice because it was a rat rod. It was easy. I didn't have to make
Still
bolt
have
holes.
wood on the inside of it?
What's that?
Does it still have wood on the inside of it?
Oh, anything you see on the Woody, the Caddy Woody,
Yeah,
was
yeah.
all added by me.
Okay.
Yeah, there was nothing there.
Yeah,
It was
oh, really?
literally, there was nothing. It was
Oh, okay.
literally, like, here's the drivers and here's like the bench seat. There's a piece of metal right here.
That
And
was
then
it?
from there back, it was just a frame.
Oh, okay. All right,
Like,
all right.
So yeah, I didn't preface it. This was a hearse in its lifetime. In 1946, it was a hearse.
Yeah.
Then it became an ambulance because it's painted white.
That's cool.
And then somebody somewhere cut the entire box off the back and made like a makeshift flatbed. So there was really horrible stick welded
Oh, yeah.
like tabs and clips that would have held on a flatbed.
Bubble gum.
I cut all that off.
Yeah.
You know, it was all this real janky, like done in like probably the 50s
Okay.
or even the 60s. That's how old this looked. It was really horribly done.
Coat hanger welding?
Yeah, it was horrible. And nothing looked like it was done outside of like some farmer's like field. You know, it was like nothing looked like it was done in a shop. Anyway, all that was missing. There was no flatbed. There was no gas tank. The straps for the gas tank were hanging. And no carburetor, no starter, no radiator, no drive shaft, no brakes. And I said to Rob, I go, let's just attack each thing one at a time.
Right.
See if we can make it work.
That's it. I mean, sometimes when you look at the whole list, you're like, fuck. But if you take it one at a time.
And then my goal, so we brought the car in here January this year, and I was like, we got till August, the Rat's Nest event at Maker Camp. We got till August 18th. And August 18th, I got the car basically running, driving, registered, insured. I just didn't have the windows in it, so it didn't matter.
Yeah.
And so you see it over there. I put Lexan windows in most of the spots, but I don't know. I kind of like it with no windows in it. It feels like an old school bus.
So you took us through, the early part of your life, kind of what you do now. What's next for you?
I have no idea. I really don't know. It's
Yeah.
like I'm constantly reinventing myself. It's a little scary.
Yeah.
But I've been a freelancer my whole life, so I've always been. My mindset is this is all beautiful possessions, and I love it, and I don't ever want to lose it. But I know that's possible, and
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I've come to be like, if I have to like dump this place and move to my spec house down the road, which is also on 13 acres. It's it's no small change, but it's not done. The walls are gutted. There's no bathroom. There's no heating system at the moment. But all that'll be done within the year. So that house down the block that I'm working on, the graveyard house. What's next for me? I don't know. I mean, I'm going to try and maintain. I don't want to leave.
Is there anything you haven't done that you want to try?
I've always wanted to either build motorcycles or cars, and I'm just now getting in by. Doing the Woody is like my first big foray.
Okay, cool.
So I'm kind of approaching that. I guess my girlfriend is an art dealer, and she constantly says, you need to make things that don't do anything. You got to create art. She's like, you have all the means necessary to create big sculpture, public sculpture. And so these ideas are brewing. I want to take that old Fleetwood sitting there and just like bury it nose up in the field, like in honor of the Cadillac graveyard in Texas.
Yeah.
So these ideas come to me. I want to do more abstract art, basically. That's kind of where I feel like I'm going.
Sweet. Yeah. All right, so we got to get back to Maker Camp, but
Maker Camp's
it was
waiting.
good sitting down with you and going through it. But before we leave, if anybody likes this segment and wants to get in contact with you or find out where you are on Instagram or whatever, what are your handles?
Jimmy DiResta at everything. My email is jimmydiresta@me.com.
All right.
I give out all my info. It doesn't matter. People find me anyway. Even though I try and hide it, people find me.
Perfect. Well, thank you for being on the show. This has been phenomenal.
Thanks, brother. Thank you, guys. Thank you all very much. Thanks, Brunt.